Hey guys, welcome back. I have another French tip Halloween inspired nail design, this time using a jack-o'-lantern. The very first thing you're going to want to do is grab a black polish. This is Black Onyx by OPI, and you're going to want to paint this on a Ziploc bag. I'm using a freezer bag because it's a little more firm. You can also use a stamping mat if you have one. I just don't have one yet, a silicone mat. And I just slowed this down so I could talk for a few minutes, but you're just going to want to paint this on in a square, making the edges a little rounded so it's a little bit easy to pull off. And you're going to let that dry. Let it dry for a few hours. Do this definitely ahead of time. Sometimes I'll even do it the night before if I know I'm going to do the nail design the next day. And then I'm going to need a second coat, and you want it thick, not too thick, but thick enough that you're going to be able to peel that off. Okay, now you're ready to get into your design. Use a good base coat, and then I put 2 coats of Mademoiselle on all my fingers. And I freehanded the tips using OPI's Freedom of Peach. This is new from the new OPI Fall Winter collection this year. And I put a link to the videos that I did this before down below. I did this in my last 2 nail art tutorials, my Halloween inspired ones, and you can take a look at that below. Once you finish your French tips, you can go ahead and paint on your pumpkin on your accent nail, any accent nail that you choose. And I'm just doing 2 rounded curves at the top going down to the base. Doing that heart-shaped top will give you some space to put a little stem at the top. Once you've finished that and you've let that dry, I came in with OPI's Yank My Doodle, just a little darker orange, to do some lines. I didn't want to do black just because I wanted it to be a little more muted and I want the jack-o'-lantern face to stand out a little bit more. So just curve those edges from the top down to the bottom and make them have a natural curve. If you've watched my channel for a while, you know what brushes I use, but if you haven't, I'll have a link down below to those that I'm using. And then I'm coming in with my bigger brush and Stay Off the Lawn from OPI. This is also new from their winter and fall collection this year, and I'll have a link down to my review. I love that collection. You need to check that out. So you just want to paint the stem the way you like it. And then I'm also going to use my smaller brush just to extend that out a little bit, just to give it a little more detail. And I'm cleaning my brush off with acetone and wiping it on a towel in between each detail. Alright, now the next step is to do the jack-o'-lantern. So once this has dried, give it a good few hours. This one I didn't do overnight. I let it dry for about 1 hour, and then I kind of peeled that off carefully, and it's a little tricky, just be patient with it. Peel that off, and then I actually do leave it upside down for another 20 minutes or so just to make sure it's completely dry and it's a little easier to cut. And then I got a piece of paper and I have it underneath just to catch everything, and I'm going to go ahead and use these scissors. It's easier with smaller scissors, maybe beauty scissors. I couldn't find mine, so I'm just using regular ones. It just takes a little more practice and a little more of a steady hand, but I'm going to go ahead and cut that mouth shape out as close as I can get it, remembering that my nail is pretty narrow, so it needs to be a pretty narrow smile. So I've cut that out, and there it is on my scissors right there. It's pretty small, but I'm going to go ahead and try that on my nail and just see if it's the right size. And as you can see, it's just a little bit big, and so I can see that, so I'm going to peel it back up and just trim the edges to make it a little smaller. And I'm going to go ahead and try that on again and see if it's the right size, and that's looking much better. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out the little crisscrosses on each side now. Now cutting this is a little intricate. You just want to cut little triangles, and you just want to make sure you don't go all the way to the other end or you'll cut it completely in half. So just very carefully cut little tiny triangles, and then on the other side you're going to do them alternating with the other ones. Now the good thing about using a big piece of that black that we had dry out is that you can practice and try more if you mess up, so it's okay. So you want to make your black square that you paint on your Ziploc bag a little bit bigger so you can do it a few times if you need to. Now I'm just let you guys watch this and see how I'm cutting these triangles out, and then I'll have it zoomed in here in a minute and you can see what it looks like close up. And I think that looks pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so you guys can see that close up, and it's just kind of a jaggedy tooth smile. And then I'm going to cut these triangles for the eyes. Sorry, I got a little out of frame here, but I'm just going to cut little tiny triangles. I'm going to do a few pair just because I'm not sure what size I'm going to need. So I did some that were a little bit bigger, and I'll try those, and then I'm going to cut some that are a little bit smaller. And I ended up using the ones that were pretty small. And there they are. See the little jack-o'-lantern face? I'm going to have this on a piece of paper right next to me so that it's easy to pick up. So I'm just going to dab on just a tiny bit of top coat. I got way too much on this. Just learned from my mistake, and it kind of messed my face up just slightly. It wasn't as perfect as I wanted it to be, but just know that when you do it, just use a tiny bit of top coat to get that to stick on, and you just want to gently pat it with your finger. Now I licked a Q-tip, that's kind of gross, but I licked it and just picked up the little piece with it and put it on. I was going to use a Q-tip, but I worried it would gouge it, but I just had a thought that you could probably use a dotting tool just as well, and it's a little easier to see where you're placing that little design. So I went ahead and did the eye. I'm going to do the other eye, a teeny dab of top coat, and then pick that up with my Q-tip or dotting tool. I would use that instead, and place that on very carefully. And this was a little crooked. Later on I kind of moved that eye down just a little bit, and it's okay, you can adjust that if it's still wet. Now I'm using my HK Girl top coat. It's my favorite one. Just make sure it's completely dry. I waited at least half an hour. And that's my final look. I hope you guys like this. I hope you're liking the French tip designs. Let me know if you want to see any more, and I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks, bye.